Welcome to the 48th edition of Stump the Pastor. Our question today comes from Daryl in Washington, D.C. He says, "When you were in seminary, we were having a theological discussion about something that I can't remember. But what I do remember was you saying it had never rained before the Great Flood. My response was, you've got to be kidding." Now, this question is one of the problems of having friends that span decades. They remember you when you were young and not yet precise. Well, as you can tell by the question, Daryl and I were friends for a long time. And that means that when we had this conversation, I was at a very different place in my life and my theological development. So this is giving you a little insight into how I have grown over the years. It is funny, though, because I remember this conversation. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember this conversation from 1980. If I were to answer the question now, I would answer similarly, only now I would say it this way. The Bible doesn't say it rained until the story of the flood. Now, I was still, let's say, evolving in my theological development at the point in life when Daryl and I discussed this question. And from that point of view, I was accurate in that the Bible doesn't say it rains anywhere in the chapters leading up to the flood story in Genesis 6. In fact, in the second creation story in Genesis 2, it says explicitly that during creation it didn't rain, but that water welled up from the ground like springs. Go ahead, read the story. I'll wait. Just kidding. You can read it on your own time, but you'll see that I am right. Now, the interesting thing that this creates is adding tension to the Noah story. See, the assumption of the Noah story was that the earth would be destroyed by water, not by rain specifically. According to the story, God even told Noah that the water that would destroy the earth would be floodwaters. Only as the flood is happening are we told that the waters come from under the earth and the sky. That's in chapter 7:11. That part of the story was actually one I had overlooked all these years. The water came from beneath the earth and the rain above. I had not noticed that before, so thanks, Daryl, for getting me back into this story again. So how would I answer this question now? Well, the Bible says nothing about rain falling until this Noah story in chapter 7. Does that mean it never rained before this moment? Well, now that I no longer read these stories as history and see them as faith stories told to explain how the world got to the place it is, it's not the point of the story. You see, I read the flood story, like all the stories of the creations, as a faith story. It did not happen at a point in time in history. Many cultures around Israel had similar flood stories of a retribution by the gods for sinful behaviors. So I have no idea when the first rainfall happened on Earth. We know from science that there were times in the Earth's history that our planet was volcanic, plagued by asteroid bombardment, had periods of complete coverage by ice. But at some point, oxygen and hydrogen found a way to bind together and become rain. I have no idea when the first drop fell. And as far as I know, neither does anyone else. But if any of you listening to this discussion have information I don't have, send it to me, and I'll include you in an upcoming episode. See you next time on Stump the Pastor. Well, thanks, Daryl. It was so good to hear from you. And all of my old friends who have known me over the years, you have a story about me somewhere where we talked about something from the Bible. Send it to me. I'll make myself look stupid in front of you as well. See you next time on Stump the Pastor.